Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Carlos Perez, and I'm welcoming you to Nova Southeastern University. I'm physically in Fort Lauderdale, Davie right now, and we've got a wonderful program for you and our panelists. Before we begin, I'm just going to give myself a little introduction. Again, my name is Dr. Carlos Perez, and I'm the Director of Outreach for the College of Psychology. And I also teach in the College of Education, both bachelor's and doctoral courses in education, human services. So let's see, David, can you go next?
Sure. I'm Dr. David Feldman, and I'm a clinical psychologist and associate professor in the College of Psychology. I'm also the coordinator of the clinical forensic psychology concentration. So my background is really more forensic psychology. I also have a degree in counseling, specifically school counseling, and then I'm also a clinical psychologist in the United States Army. That's it. That's all you need to know.
Dr. Rusi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melanie Irusi. I am a counselor educator, and I have been for 9 years. I've been at NSU. This is my 3rd year at NSU. Love it here. I started out as an undergraduate psychology major, went on to get my master's degree in what was called then community counseling. Now it's called clinical mental health counseling. And then I went on to get my PhD in counselor education and supervision. So I've been licensed as a professional counselor in various states, including Ohio, Virginia, Alabama, and now working on having that transferred to Florida, as well as certified or licensed as a substance abuse counselor in Ohio and Virginia. And again, working on getting that transferred here to Florida. So I'm happy to be here.
We're happy that you're here in Florida. Emilio.
Got my Bachelor of Science in International Relations and Sociology from Florida International University. Had a lot of background in healthcare, working in research, even did research with electric fish for about 2 years. From there, I got my master's in higher education from NSU. I was the first career counselor full-time at the university. Worked as a graduate assistant, worked into full-time, became the assistant director and oversaw a whole team of advisors, the trainings. And then over the last 3 years, or 2.5 years, I've been working more on the employee relations side. So developing jobs and internships for students, but still spearheading a lot of training on how we counsel students on a variety of different industries or guidance on their career path. I'm also MBTI certified, so I'm very comfortable with personality assessments and other career assessments.
Sure, can you tell them what that means?
Yeah, so MBTI stands for the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. So it's an assessment to figure out what are your personality traits, what are your preferences, how do you take in information, how do you gain energy, so who are those that are extroverts versus introverts, and help you debunk some of those, because a lot of times you think introverts, oh, I just don't like being around people, but it helps you understand it on a deeper level on how you gain your energy. So it's a lot of different things on terms of gathering information, making decisions, and how you like your world organized. You put all those together and it helps you understand a little bit on your preference for certain career paths, settings, and ways to kind of help you be successful within the path that you go into.
And what exactly is an electric fish?
Oh, so like electric eels, black ghosts, these are all different fish that emit electricity. So like an eel is one where if you touch it, you're gonna get shocked a little bit. But I also worked with other fishes that you wouldn't get shocked, but they are emitting electricity, you just couldn't see it. I actually worked with the head professor who invented the mechanism on how to measure this electricity output for these fishes. So did a lot of research on that. It's a fun fact I end up throwing out to people.
Well, thank you very much. And Dr. Munoz.
I am James Munoz. I'm a Florida native, and I spent some time in the Air Force before going to college. Then I went to get my undergraduate degree and moved on to grad school for neuroscience. So I'm not a psychologist, but actually I work in the neuroscience major at the university, where I've been for about 10 years. And before coming here, I spent 4 years at the University of Pennsylvania in the Department of Neuroscience as a postdoc, before coming down here.
Very good. Well, everyone's coming in, I'd like to welcome you again to Nova Southeastern University. I'm going to basically ask you a couple questions and feel free to interject at any time. And one of the big questions I have for you is, what was your aha moment, the moment you knew exactly what you wanted to do? Just go ahead and start off if anyone can help me with that question.
I'll jump in there. I'll jump in on that one because for me it was an internship, and when I was an undergrad, I was so lost. I just the options were go back in the Air Force and or try to find something in college that I liked, and I changed my major 7 times, and it was finally my faculty advisor who told me that he wasn't going to let me change my major until I did an internship. And for me, that was the most eye-opening experience because the reality is there's no job that really mimics the undergraduate major where you don't go to work and somebody says open your textbook to chapter 3. It's very different in the real world, and doing an internship just opens your eyes to what's out there, and you get to see if you really like it or not. And so for me, it was an internship that it wasn't even my #1 choice, but it turned out to be a neuroscience internship. And I never looked back. I loved it. I love how multidisciplinary it is, and how we were in a room. The day it happened was we were in a room for a lab meeting, and somebody proposed the project, and we had 2 psychologists, an anatomist, an immunologist, a biochemist, and a couple of physicians that were all in the room working on this project. And by the time that project was initially pitched to the time that, an hour later when we were ready to launch, it was amazing, all the different multidisciplinary approaches to it. And that's the moment I fell in love with neuroscience.
Very nice.
So I encourage everyone else to do an internship if you're not sure.
Yeah, and actually I did an internship that I decided that would not be the thing for me to do, and I did it at the Trenton State Psychiatric Facility.
That's just as valuable to find out that you don't want to do it, right?
Exactly. Sure. Any other panelists?
I can kind of piggyback off of that. Similar, as an undergraduate, I knew that I went in undecided. I knew that I wanted to be in the helping professions somewhat, but I had no idea what that was going to look like, if that was going to be a medical profession or something otherwise. I completely lost, but did kind of take my time to explore. And like you, was an internship that I went, and it was working for an employee assistance program that was a national program providing services all over the country. And they had a range of professionals there. They had social workers, psychologists, professional counselors, psychiatrists, and it really gave me a good sense of how the different helping professionals viewed client issues, how they approached helping, and that's solidified for me that counseling was the path. And going into that, it really helped to narrow it down. And I learned more about the counseling degree, learned that it was the 60 credit hours, so for my life at that time, it really fit as well. I ended up going on to get the PhD, but at that point, I wasn't ready to bite that off and commit. So knowing that I could be licensed, following the postmaster's practice requirements was really appealing to me. So I went in that direction from there.
Yeah, I'd like to add a little bit. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was evaluating different options on what to do with my career path. Similar to psychology, international relations degree gives you a lot of different options, and whether business fields or counseling fields. And it was actually a combination of an informational interview and an internship that really gave me that aha moment. I sat in on a presentation actually led by Dr. Sherry Saperstein, who's the Dean Undergraduate College. She was formerly Director of Career Development. And, during her presentation, it made me ask a lot of questions about my own career path and guidance. And speaking to her afterwards in an information interview, I started seeing the impact you could have as a career counselor and really guiding people and using different skill sets and leveraging your own experiences. Me, who had come from different career paths, experience in different areas, it was really helpful. And from there, I took an internship with FIU Law School and got to do some career counseling, got to do some programming. And it was really the aha moment of me being like, well, this could be for me. I really love this type of setting. And from there, pursued a graduate assistantship, master's program. But it all started with an informational interview that led to an internship.
David, can we put you on the spot?
You can, sure. Because I've been sitting here thinking about it, and I read the question, but I don't know that I've had that aha moment, and I think that's okay, because it's something where I love teaching. I'm really happy to be at Nova. I love psychology and working with people and doing assessment and treatment. But I think there's still that, you know, that kind of, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's still that search for, what do I want to do next? And I think in some ways that's a very positive thing, because it kind of leads you on to that next thing, or leads you on to that next kind of venture in your life. You know, I have, you know, like I said, I'm a psychologist in the military. I do work for Voc Rehab. I have a practice with the deaf and hard of hearing. But it's something where I like all those things and I love all those things, but it's not really had you know, an aha of, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so there's, I think that, again, that kind of keeps pulling you forward to kind of looking at what is that next thing that I want to try that may lead ultimately to that. Interesting, you know, like I mentioned that I, you know, do forensic psychology, and my father was a forensic scientist. So he did blood, hair, and ballistics, the science part. And my mom was a psychologist, a school psychologist at a school for the deaf. And growing up, I never wanted to be either one of those things. And it wasn't until, you know, very late in life, when I was already, you know, doing the psychology degree and having some experience, that I kind of merged those two things together. So it wasn't something where I kind of knew this is what I wanted to do as an undergrad. When I, you know, went on to grad school, it was actually to be a career counselor is what I wanted to do, working with high school kids. And then after that, I did that for a while, came back and wanted to do the clinical work, because I wanted to do assessment and work with more severe types of psychopathology. So it always kind of bounces to what's that next thing. And then, you know, I you know, started doing some work in the military. So there's a lot of things I'm passionate about, a lot of things I love to do. But to have that sort of singular aha moment, you know, I haven't had it yet.
Maybe it's not too late.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
Never too late. I mean, wait, what was that? What was that?
So then what do you want to do when you grow up? What's going to be the last thing?
That's a great question. That's why I never ask that question to my students, because I you know, I don't know that you ever have to make that decision.
Very good.
Maybe I have to.
And you know,
There you go.
I think
that's what he wants to be when he grows up.
So I'm going to go right into the next question, which is, if you were not in the psychology, counseling, higher education field, what would be your ideal dream job? What would you be doing if you could do anything right now? Munoz, be careful.
I'd be an astronaut, perhaps. I would love that if I could. But you know, that whole math thing gets in the way sometimes. But I love the PA profession, and you know, should the time come when you know, NSU fires me, I'll go to PA school. I am the pre-PA advisor for the university, and I think it's one of the best professions out there. It's you know, quick 2.5 years of training. You don't have to do a residency. There's motility within the job field. You can you know, work in you know, internal medicine or surgery, you know, the next week, and there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of autonomy in that work as well. So that would perhaps be my other life. But I do love my job. I gotta say, this is one of the greatest gigs you know, that you can land. I absolutely love my job.
It's definitely not too late, so we could probably sign you up and start taking that extra class. Anyone else?
I'd probably want to be an Imagineer at Disney World. That would be my, maybe that's my aha moment that I haven't had yet. But if I couldn't work at Nova, that's what I'd be doing. And I wouldn't even have to leave Florida, so that would be perfect.
Yeah.
I struggled. Oh, go ahead, Millie.
Oh no, please, Melanie, go.
I really struggled with this one, and I don't know if it's because my identity is so wrapped up in being a counselor and counselor educator, but I really struggled with this one. And it was kind of the out of the box thinking. I was like, what would I do? Maybe something physically oriented, but for a job, I don't know. I mean, I have these things that I like to do as hobbies, but I have a real hard time imagining myself in another profession. Not to be super boring about this question, but I can't really come up with one.
You guys ever been to the Renaissance Festival? when I go to the Renaissance Fest, I think, man, I would love to live that lifestyle that they live. I love it. It seems free. It seems fantastic, but I do love, AC as well. Amelia.
Yeah, I would say either a game show host. I've always wanted to be like the Price is game show host. But if another one would probably be HR training and development. Outside of my role in career development, I do consultation for companies. So I lead presentations, a lot of different developmental topics, and it's something that in an HR perspective, I think I would thrive in.
So to just switch it up, but it's still in a little bit of the same area. What do you think the best part of psychology, counseling, or higher ed? What do you think is the best part of what we're doing right now?
Melanie wants to start that one.
I can, sure. I think, in the role of a helping professional, any kind of helping professional, whether you're a counselor or psychologist, to me, the best part is having that privilege of being able to step into other people's worlds, getting to know other people's stories on that intimate level. And really, who else gets to do that? It come into somebody's world is a stranger, and then really start to help them with some of the things that they don't share with anybody. So I just always think about what a privilege it is to be in that role and to be a helper on the individual level, but then also kind of broadening it from there. Those individuals that we're helping are often those who don't receive, assistance from other places. So really taking that role very seriously and being an advocate for clients, thinking about it more on a systemic level, and helping those who need the help, who might be stigmatized or ostracized in various ways, to help them, empower them so that they can start to create changes in their lives to better themselves, but to also, live to their potential. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. In regards to my job, there's so many things that I love about what I do in regards to teaching and training and writing. And one of the things I love about this profession is that you can never get bored. I tell my students, even if you start out working with a single population, you can learn different ways to better treat people of that population. You can move in different areas of the profession, go on, get your PhD, teach, write, research, train in evidence-based practices. That's something that I like to do. So there's a whole lot that I like, all from the individual client work, but then all the way up into the possibilities within the profession.
Yeah, I think just kind of going back to my, the forensic part of psychology and some of the things we're working on, here at Nova. A lot of people, when they think of forensic psychology, they think of profilers and criminal minds, and some of that is true. But one of the things that I really like and really take a lot of pride in and see, a good direction that psychology is going is really looking at, equality and equity and fairness and injustice in the legal system. And that's something that forensic psychology, we look at, are our tests for competency fair? Is the way that we do things in the courtroom fair? Looking at, the differences in cultural diversity and multiculturalism and language and education and how all those things affect that criminal justice system and determination of, is somebody responsible for a criminal act? And I think those things are very, very important. And I take a great deal of pride in psychology as a whole, and especially, forensic criminal psychology, doing those kinds of things and really looking at individuals and groups and seeing, do the norms hold up? Is there validity to what we do? And how can we make those systems better so that, we do have a fair system for everyone?
Yeah, on my side, I'm not the clinician, but I'm in a neuroscience major. I'm teaching what I love, and the research that I do is what I want to do, and that's something you get to do as a professor, is do the kind of research that you're interested in, right? It's going to, of course, stem on what you've been trained in, but you go into the training program based on your interests as well, and you don't have somebody telling you have to ask these questions or research this. You get to let your questions drive your research program. And I think that freedom is absolutely incredible.
From a higher ed perspective, in terms of career counseling, I would definitely say the impact you have on your clients and the diversity that it comes with. I mean, you might, depending on the tools in your tool belt, you might work with a freshman that doesn't even know what they want to major in, and you got to help them explore, understand their values, understand their personality, find the right fit. Or you might be working with a much higher level alumni who is now trying to, you know, change up their career path or trying to figure out, you know, a new kind of career to get into. And so being able to help them figure that out, give them the tools to find those avenues, to find the right opportunities, or just to take ownership of their career. You see them in their eyes and the energy that they have when they're, you know, in a happier place because they found something that they want, or they reached that dream up. They got that ideal opportunity, becoming an Imagineer at Disney. And so it's all about being able to guide them and give them the tools. But being a part of that process is really special, because when they look back down the road and seeing their career path, you were a part of, or an instrumental part in getting there.
You're absolutely right. I love that part. You know, I probably write about 30 or 40 letters of recommendation a year. And I always tell them, you know, let me know how it goes. And I love getting to live vicariously through them as they get accepted into, you know, graduate or professional programs or land internships and things like that. It's really rewarding, and it's neat to be a part of that. And I always send them to you, so I know that you're working with them intimately as well, because I'm always like, yeah, they send their statements to me to look over. I'm like, Amelia, send it to Amelia.
This is definitely the season for personal statements.
So since we're talking about that, those inspiring moments that we get to experience with our students, I want to take you back to when you were an undergrad, and tell us a little bit about who inspired you. Who inspired you as an undergrad? They might be young, who knows?
For me, it was my undergrad professors. I had a couple of great professors I latched onto, and they were fantastic mentors to me. And you know, as I mentioned, one of them was the one that made me do an internship, and you know, my supervisor on my internship site over at the NIH was incredible as well. And he took a big interest in me and helped me narrow down my research interests and pursue grad school and just helped me every step of the way. You know, where somebody sat down, even my career development center at my university, you know, they walked in and held my hand the whole way through, and they're like, you know, let's sit down and write this stuff together. And it was fantastic. And you know, these kinds of experiences, as well as the people you surround yourself with, that's an incredibly important part, because you know, while when you're an undergrad, I think a lot of your success is going to depend on who you surround yourself with. And for me, while I did have professors pushing me and helping me like that, without my network, without my friends, I never would have made it through. You know, it's about having that really strong support group that you know, that helps you achieve all these things.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that it was also my peer group rather than like a particular professor. I had good professors, but I was really more inspired and really, you know, had more of those, you know, those moments of inspiration with the people I was with, my network, as opposed to a single professor, you know, during that undergrad. I also was a drama major during undergrad, so, you know, it was a very different, you know, searching for that aha moment.
Agree. My peers really pushing me and challenging me. I think that's why it's so important that when you're in college, finding the right study groups where you challenge and balance yourself out. For outside of that study group, I would have to say it was my dad. You know, he's always been someone that works up at 3:30, 4 in the morning, goes to work, puts in the long hours, never complains. And just that mindset really helped me during some tough times and times where you see these huge mountains, whether it's taking an organic chemistry class or getting your big final or not doing so well, and being able to have the perseverance to push through and still having that hardworking mindset. It really pays off in professional, personal, and a lot of different areas of your life.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm having a trouble identifying someone who is like I guess, advisor or professor in my undergraduate, but largely influenced probably by family, inspired by family. Also the internship that I mentioned, there were definitely some people who inspired me there, just what they modeled and who they were. But I think most of my stronger influences probably came from my master's degree, from some of the professors that I had, my advisor, who are still, you know, people that I keep in touch with and who I see as mentors. as well as my supervisors and my clinical placements, because that's when things really started to get real and solidify my clinical training. So definitely inspired and influenced by those folks.
So just to give us a new question, what would be one thing you wish you knew about psychology, counseling before you began your career? Kind of some advice for folks that are out there, something you wish you knew before.
A couple of things. I mean, from just a general perspective, I wish I knew more. And again, I didn't come from a psychology undergrad. I kind of, got into counseling as a master's degree. So I wish I, had known more about just the breadth of psychology, because I'm always fascinated, as new aspects or new pieces of psychology or new research comes up as to, how much really falls under that counseling, psychology, mental health umbrella. Just in terms of it, it's not just mental health, it's not just therapy. There's so many other areas where psychology is involved and doing great work. The other thing that I kind of wish I knew or had a little bit more background in or training in was the sort of the business side or the grant writing side. And I would encourage anyone listening, and I tell this to my students now, you don't have to do this, but I would certainly encourage you, take a business class, take some grant writing courses. I mean, I think, I've seen how much those things pay off. When I started my own private practice, years later, I had to kind of start from the ground. I didn't know anything about a business. So, having that outside perspective of how to do things, how to write your own job, how to get funding for your own research projects. That way, when you kind of have that idea of what you want to do, there's that funding available for you. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is money and a lot of that stuff is financial, and having a good understanding of that and how to get that money so that you can do the things you want to do later on, I think is really critical and really important.
I would have loved to get more guidance on tools on how to deal with difficult clients early on in your career. I know career counseling, especially at NSU, we work with all different clients. So I remember being a graduate assistant and, dealing with alumni who have 20 to 30 years of experience in an industry. And here I am, a master's student getting my, working as a graduate assistant and giving them guidance on their own career path. And so it comes with its challenges. And so you learn that with experience. But I think, prior to getting into it, being able to get that guidance on how to deal with some of those higher level clients, or feeling confident in yourself, even if you're speaking to someone that has a lot more experience than you do, just being confident in yourself in those settings, even early on in your career.
I had a unique experience that I was actually in a psychology major, and nobody explained to me about some of the other disciplines like counseling. And I wish somebody would have taught me that, because I've been working in my capacity as a counselor for over 20 years, but I wish I would have had the opportunity to have a licensed track. And so, Melanie, I'm going to throw that question at you. Why do people not know about the differences between counseling? And then also, somebody had asked what your career is. So 2 questions for you.
Sure. So yeah, good question about why students don't often know about counseling as an option for a master's degree. And I think psychology is so well known, and so many professionals first start out with an undergraduate psychology degree, myself included. So that's a very common pathway. For me, I was fortunate enough where there was, I remember that there was a LPC, a licensed professional counselor, because I was in Ohio, come into one of my courses as an undergraduate, which, planted the seed. At least I didn't have the framework. I didn't have the understanding to really know the differences and the distinctions between the two, but at least it gave me somewhat of a foundational knowledge that there is something else. The internship that I referenced really helped solidify that understanding for me. This is what an LPC looks like and does, and how they approach things. And this is what a psychologist does and how they approach things, and social workers, and so on. So again, without that experience, I don't know that I would have really known, because at that point I was thinking psychology was probably the path I was going to take. So I think that more information about the counseling profession to undergraduate students would be very, very helpful as an option for a master's degree. At NSU, we're in the College of Psychology, and yet it is a distinct degree in counseling. So it does set up our students for, depending upon the program that they enter for license or certification, is a professional counselor. So if you're in Florida, set you up to meet the educational requirements for the LMHC. Also sets you up for certification of NCC, National Certified Counselor, on the national level. So and that's what I wish I knew. It is the kind of the figuring out of the licensure process, which I'm telling you, this is my 4th state of doing it. It doesn't get any less complicated. I'm still jumping through hoops. But I think that's the reality for lots of different professions. It's not just counseling. Every state has their requirements of what they want you to have in regards to educational requirements and testing requirements and practice, documented practice, supervised experience, and so on. So that's one thing that looking back on my time, it was, how do you get licensed? What does that mean in addition to the degree? And then how do I have that transfer from state to state? And then you throw in the substance use certifications and licenses that I've had in the past. And it's, just another layer. It makes you more marketable. It shows that you have that education and that practice behind you to have those license or certifications. And yet it's often a separate process where sometimes it's even a separate board that you're going to get those certifications. So the second part of that was, what is my job?
Yeah, your job. And I actually typed it, that you're a professor.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I omitted that from the introduction. I'm a full-time faculty member in the Department of Counseling at NSU. So I teach full-time, in the department. Yeah, primarily with clinical mental health.
Very good. And actually, I'm going to mention another discipline that often people don't know about, and that is the field of school psychology, which is very much facing a national critical shortage in many areas. So what that means is that there's an opportunity for employment, and it's a very rewarding area. Any other suggestions there before we move on to our next question? All right, so I'm going to ask a question from part of our audience. I am a childhood educator and has an MS in educational psychology. Not many years of experience. I'm looking for a job at 50. How should I start? Any suggestions there?
What kind of job are you looking for? I mean, tell me more about what you want to do.
And to respond to Dr. Feldman, just respond to the chat. And I think we know that there's a lot of people, especially in this period, that are looking for a complete change, something new, something exciting. Sometimes it's because of the current situation that they're facing. So it's not just people right out of college, it's mid-career professionals. What kind of advice do we have for them?
Well, I think it's first evaluating all of your resources, like whether it's career advisors, job search engines, all of those pieces, and then self-evaluation. What does your current resume look like? And based on the industry or jobs you're looking for, do a little bit of benchmarking. Look at someone's LinkedIn page that holds the same position you do. Pull up 5 to 10 jobs in the area you're going into and ask yourself, if I was the hiring manager for these jobs, what are the key skills, knowledge, and experience I would be looking for? And then self-evaluate your own resume. Do you have those experiences? Do you have those hard and soft skills? Do you have those knowledge base? And if the answer is no, is there a more entry-level position that can set you up for that? I call those almost lily pad opportunities, where it's not everything you want, because again, in careers, just like in our life, there's trade-offs you need to make. And so maybe the trade-off you make in that initial experience really sets you up for that job you do want. But I think it's about leveraging your resources, self-evaluation, and then proactive benchmarking, and then putting yourself out there. I think everyone, ideally would love to just apply and get a job just by clicking it on your couch, on your, be back at home. But the truth of the matter is that still 80% of the job come through networking. go to networking events. Even now with COVID-19, there's an enormous amount of virtual career fairs, virtual networking events, group chats. And that also comes with yourself. Are you a part of professional affiliations, professional organizations in the areas you see yourself in? And so that would be a startup point. And then organizing your job search. Don't just click and apply. Have almost a spreadsheet that really identifies what did you apply for, when did you apply, when are you going to follow up? So that way, if you get a call weeks after you started applying, you're not wondering, hey, what is this about? It would look not good on your behalf if you ask that employer, what is it that I applied for a few weeks ago? And so this is a good way of really getting yourself started. But I think evaluating yourself and the resources and creating a game plan for a proactive approach to your job search is going to put you in the best position for success.
That's some great advice. I know that there's lots of individuals that are graduating in this season, and they're putting out over 50 resumes, some up to 100 or more. And so tracking all that is quite important. And using resources like LinkedIn. I also like to make sure that people are interviewing individuals that are in the field so that they can know a little bit more. I know a lot of questions are coming in. We're going to try to get to as much of them as possible.
Can I just jump off that point about the one thing that I would suggest, and I've done this myself, is really kind of focus on, don't be afraid to sell yourself. And that doesn't mean to lie or anything like that. I'm not advocating that, but treat every job as if it's, an individual application. I mean, when you write a letter, write to that position. I have 3 different CVs that I use. They're all have the same information, but I have a CV I use when I apply for clinical work, when I apply for academic work, and when I apply for military work, because the military wants you to write a CV in a very specific and different way than we do. But it's sort of, again, it's the same information, but depending on, if it's academic, I want them to see my academic teaching, my research history first. If it's clinical, I want them to see my clinical work first. So again, it's something where you don't just do form letters. Don't just do one CV that you send out en masse to everybody. I mean, I know it's hard because you're applying for a lot of jobs, but as much as you can, try to make yourself an individual. What is it that you're bringing to this position? What skills, what abilities, what experience do you have that's going to help this employer, that is going to make you ideal for this employer? And then as you do your CV and your letter, make sure you really emphasize those things.
I think that's an important point. I'd like to add that when our students are applying for things like internships or positions, a lot of times they make the mistake of saying, no, I don't have any research experience. And that's not true. That's what we've been giving you in your undergrad. We've been teaching you how to do this, and we've been teaching you these techniques. So I tell them to do things like, don't say you have no research experience. Say, I'm familiar with the following techniques. I have a familiarity with these techniques. So, Western blot, ELISA, PCR, electrophoresis, lists of things that we've done in the university. They're gonna teach you how to do it their way in their lab, but don't say I have no experience, because that makes you one of the least desirable candidates if you don't sell yourself, right? Like David's saying.
And most employers actually look at academic projects. Whether you got paid for it or didn't, doesn't really matter. Do you have the tools and the skills necessary to do the job? And sometimes if you do it through those project work, it can really kind of give you a leg up in that job search. But I do think that targeting your resume based on each opportunity is key, because they're only going to look at your resume for about 15 seconds. But if everything on the resume is screaming out, hey, I'm the right fit and this is why, at the very least, you're going to pass that first round to get called for an interview, because the resume doesn't get us the job. The resume gets us the interview. It's our answers to the interview questions and our ability to sell our fit that really gets us that opportunity. And so I think students almost try to put too much at once and say everything, or cut themselves short on the resume. And right then and there, you don't even get a chance to sell your stuff.
So to answer a question from Jennifer, I currently work for social services in Doral, Florida. I work with elderly and adults with disabilities. Absolutely love working in the profession. Unsure of which masters pursue. Social work, counseling, therapy. Can you explain the differences?
Good. I can kind of jump in there, and thinking about even from that last question too, and that might be the position that this person is in. those of you who might be thinking about a second or even third career, or building on the education and the career experience that you already have, is to do that research. And I love this question because you do want to know what exactly it is you're investing additional time, money, your future into through that degree. So to not enter another degree without doing that research. And that can come from by visiting websites, by talking to people in recruitment and admissions, talking to faculty, instructors. I know I do that pretty frequently with prospective students, so that you get a good sense of what is it, and is it what I'm looking for, including not just the educational requirements for that program, but what are the practice requirements? What does the practicum and internship look like? What does it look like after post-graduation to get independent licensure within the state that I'm living in? So all of those are really good questions to kind of tease some of that out. But also don't be afraid of that. I mean, our counseling programs are very diverse in regards to who our students are, and that really enriches the learning environment. We have a lot of folks who are there after their first career, second career, and so on. So speaking a little bit, about the differences, the counseling perspective is really focused on the practitioner model. So the master's degree is designed to have students graduate and ready for counseling practice. So the practicum and internship requirements are focused on being out in the community, being out in agencies, well supervised. We have layers of supervision provided from both the sites as well as the university, so helping students be supported in those early practice experiences. And we have a focus on wellness, on prevention, as well as on treatment, and looking at what methods work for this specific client with their specific issues. So very individualized, kind of unique approach to helping. Whereas going into social work and going into psychology, you'd really want to look into those various programs, because even within those programs, there's a lot of diversity. You can have any number of different psychology master's degrees. You want to look at what exactly is that program about, and what will it lead to post-graduation, and similarly with social work.
You might also, if you're looking at beyond the master's level, there's the PhD in psychology and there's the PsyD. And the PhD is really more the research. Both are good degrees, both are valid. You can get licensed with both. The PhD is really more the research academic degree. The PsyD is really more the applied. Again, doesn't mean that you can't, switch back and forth, but you kind of want to, do you want to do the more research track with the dissertation and kind of set yourself up to teach at a university, or do you want to do the PsyD, which is more the applied degree, which is more going out and actually doing therapy assessment, things like that?
Yeah, and then with counseling too, some of our counseling master students, they think about PsyD programs, right, or PhD programs in clinical psychology. And then there's also a counselor education and supervision doctoral degree, right, which is what my PhD is in. So even that is an option for those who might be on that trajectory.
And we've actually had a number of people asking about doctor. Erica asked, what about what opportunities did a doctor provide for your career that a master's? And so I think so. Everyone here had finished a dissertation at one point, a doctorate, PhD, EDD, PsyD, and then Amelia, I'm recruiting you to do our doctorate as well. Not everyone should pursue a doctorate, but what opportunities do you think that provides over a master's?
I think it depends. In Florida, with a master's in clinical psychology, you can get licensed as a licensed professional counselor. I'm not sure that's the greatest way to go, but typically, if you want to be licensed as a psychologist, you have to have either the PhD or the PsyD. I think one of the things that people look at in psychology is counselors, social workers can do the therapy, the treatment piece, but the psychology piece is really the assessment. That's really where we kind of take a little bit of different track than some of the other professions. So if you're looking at becoming licensed as a psychologist and really doing the assessment piece, then yeah, you probably need to aim for that PhD or that PsyD, because a master's degree in psychology isn't really going to get you, it'll basically put you on level with somebody who's got a master's in counseling. So, you really need to, if you want to be a psychologist and bill yourself as a psychologist legally and ethically, you have to go for that PhD or PsyD.
And from the counseling perspective, I mean, once you graduate with a master's degree, you meet the requirements in 99% of the cases to be on the track for independent licensure within that state. So a lot of the states are pretty picky about the practicum and internship and the practice requirements that you need in order to get licensed in that state. So the master's degrees in counseling will set you up for that. And that's initially in my own path. What was really appealing to me was, I could finish this program and be ready to practice, which in the state that I started getting a master's degree in psychology, that wasn't the case. So it was like, then I would have to go on to the PhD in order to practice. So it was really appealing to me for that reason. But then I remember the moment that I realized I was going to go on for the PhD. I was almost through my master's program and someone had mentioned it to me, and I always had this idea of a PhD, but I didn't know when, kind of out in the future. And I remember just kind of like thinking like, oh, I'm going to continue this. So I did. And it was, of course, 1000% worth it. It opened up so many doors for me as a counselor educator, the door into full-time faculty work, to be a researcher, to publish. Not that you can't do that with the master's degree, but just the skills and the training that I received as part of the doctoral program. In addition to training related to advocacy, all of that was something that was built as part of my PhD program. So from the counseling, you don't need it to practice, and yet if you want to go into teaching, writing, research, it's typically necessary for those things.
The other thing I would just suggest, kind of bouncing off what was just said, is that, if you kind of know what you want to do in terms of your, what kind of mental health you want to do, assessment, treatment, whatever, and you kind of know what state you want to be in, it's probably a good idea to make sure you check the state licensing regulations, because like we were saying, in Florida, with a master's in psychology, you can sit for the LPC exam. In other states, you can. There are different requirements in terms of what you're allowed to do under what profession that, come from the state. So it's probably a good idea to just kind of be thinking about, where you want to practice, what kind of work do you want to do, and then kind of think about, okay, what degree will allow me to do that? Because you don't need a PhD or a PsyD to practice with individuals. I mean, you can do that with an LMHC, a master's in counseling. But so you kind of need to be thinking ahead and kind of checking to make sure that, are you on the right track? I get really nervous about schools that offer master's degrees in psychology, because I'm sitting here going, that's great, but you just spent several $1,000s to get a master's in psychology. What are you going to do with it? Because most states don't allow you to get licensed. So then you're kind of in this weird limbo. So make sure you look into that.
And graduate students really need to do their research and know what their next step is going to be. Tiffany is asking, I have my master's in forensic psychology, work in substance abuse with inmates in Pennsylvania, currently getting certified. I am considering getting another master's degree in order to obtain licensure. Is this realistic for continued work in mental health field?
From a forensic standpoint, I don't know Pennsylvania laws and statutes, so I don't know if it's realistic if you're planning to stay in Pennsylvania. You would have to look at, does the state allow you to get some type of, certification in substance abuse treatment and certification, whatever else you're planning to do. If the state ultimately, remember, for all these professions, it's ultimately up to the state. The state decides what you can and can't do. It's not the profession. That's just the way it is. So again, it's a hard question to answer, because it's something where I don't know what the state of Pennsylvania will allow you to do. But if you can get another master's degree cheaper, quicker, that will allow you to do what you want to practice, great, go for it. Then you don't need a PhD or PsyD. If there's something you want to do, and to be able to do it and call yourself a licensed practitioner, you need to get that upper level or that doctorate degree, then you probably need to go in that direction. And again, especially with forensic, because so much of what we do, some of it's under federal law because we're practicing in federal correctional facilities. Some of it's under state law. Some of it's under county or local jails. So it really kind of depends where you're planning to work.
I'll add to it's not for the clinical route, but with the but I think it is relevant with a lot of other courses of study, right? With the neuroscience major, we get this question all the time as well. And And Florida's a huge biotech industry here and one of the largest in the nation. And you don't need more than a bachelor's degree to start getting into the field. We have students that have graduated with just their bachelor's and have gone on to be clinical case study managers, do intraoperative monitoring, work as a science writer, or go into these different health professions, because with that bachelor's degree, it opens up entry into all the professional schools, like medical school to PA and nursing, any of these, as well as graduate programs like neuroscience. And so there's it really is defining what degree do you need to get to do what you want to do, and a lot of times if you don't need to go on, don't go on. Sometimes you don't have to.
Yeah, I agree. Looking at the requirements of Pennsylvania licensure or certification, depending upon what you're seeking, that's essential. Like Dr. Feldman said, I mean, know what the state is going to look at to say whether or not you've met requirements for whether it's LPC or the substance use certification in that state. I mean, what is it that you're seeking? And then look at what they're gonna look for in regards to your educational requirements and practice requirements. A lot of times people get kind of stuck there. Do you have the practicum and internship requirements for supervised practice as part of what they're looking for licensure, the certification?
So Karina, I would like to know, she would like to work with families in distress and help children with disrupted families. Any suggestions there for careers?
I'll just jump in. I don't know, again, depending on more specifically what you want to do, but I think you could do that, as a psychologist, as a counselor, as a licensed clinical social worker. I mean, all of them have different practices where they work with families. I would say for something like that, what you really want to be looking at is that practicum and internship experience. Is, in any one of those disciplines, you're going to be getting a lot of the same information, research on family issues, couples issues, things like that. But where you really start to define yourself is when you're going out and doing practicum at sites that are training you to be what you want to be. So I would, certainly look at, do you want to do social work, counseling, psychology, but also which one of those fields or areas are going to give you the applied training in terms of internship and practicum that are going to give you the experience to do what you want to do later on.
I want to add too on that. You don't have to get the degree to find out if that's what you want to do as well. When I was working as an undergrad, I was, myself and some friends, we were volunteering at like hospice centers or, working with disadvantaged children in different environments, and you can get exposed to this and find out if this is really what you want to do before even getting into the degree. And it's a great way to see how those people with those degrees are working in that field as well. And they can be a great source of guidance for you if you decide to pursue that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Emilio, this might kind of fall into your area, but I'm almost even thinking like, look to see what jobs are being posted that might be appealing to you, and seeing what are they looking for in regards to requirements. Because some of them might be kind of bachelor level, some might be master's level. So I think it really depends on what you want to do with those populations to be helpful in seeing, what is the position that would be your ideal position, and then what does that require? What are the qualifications?
Absolutely, man. That's exactly what I would have suggested is first identify, are you willing to relocate? Are you staying in South Florida? So then start making a list of organizations, employers, nonprofits that you can get exposure to that field. What are the varying skills? Obviously, working in a counseling level might require a higher up skills set and a degree, but working for a nonprofit to start getting that exposure might be able to done within a bachelor's level. But evaluating all the options there, and as students and alumni, you have access to our career database known as Handshake. You have your LinkedIn profiles. You have a lot of different resources to help you start identifying what's out there and what's lacking on your resume, or what's things that you need to strengthen or sell better on the resume itself.
And just for being a participant today, what you may not know is that Emilio is willing to look over your stuff. You can send it to him, and he has a fantastic team, and he'll make sure your stuff is fantastic, ready to go out there on the market. Right, Emilio?
Absolutely.
Right along the same area, we have occurred, and I know quite a few students graduating with their masters. When would it be recommended for a student about to finish their master's to start applying a job? Last month?
Yeah. I would say the last semester, but not waiting till the last month, almost creating a runway for yourself where you might use the beginning of the semester to start going to career fairs, networking events. A lot of times companies will hire you months in advance and know that you're going to be coming on for onboarding the moment that you finish your degree program. But I think starting to evaluate what are the different avenues I can put myself out there, start talking to people, even doing informational interviews with companies you can see yourself in, but they haven't posted anything yet. So that way there's no agenda you have going into it. You're just trying to build a relationship and get to know and build a relationship with someone that is working in an industry you're passionate about. And since there's no agenda on the line or no job on the line, that person is going to be much more relaxed. Their guard's going to be down. It's going to be a very much get to know you type meeting, but you might make an impression that when a real opportunity does arise, you're no longer just a number on a resume. You're now an individual. They know what's about and what they can offer in terms of value.
And
Yeah.
I think you're touching on a great point because there's going to be cycles at organizations, and most organizations that are in position of hiring are going to do it within a certain period. So you can't be discouraged if that timing isn't quite right for you. So you really need to be flexible. Melanie, I cut you off. Sorry.
No. Yeah, I was just going to emphasize the networking. I know a lot of our students, it's not uncommon for students to continue on with their internship placement post-graduation as registered intern, is employment. So to not be afraid to initiate those conversations when you're at your site, and, you know, mental health, people know each other. So if you're a good, strong intern and you're responsible, professional, you do really good work with your clients, chances are, you know, let your supervisor know that you're seeking a position for post-graduation, and let that networking start. I know I'm teaching the last semester of internship for a group of students right now, and some of them have already secured that post-graduation employment. So I think that last semester is critical for that, and to just, you know, don't be afraid to talk about it. Let people in your network know who are in the profession, and encourage them to let you know if they hear of any open positions that might be a good fit for you, and to try to not get discouraged. I often think that job searching is one of the most frustrating processes because you can only control this much of it. Right? You put your materials and yourself out there, and you can network as much as you can, but also recognize that there's a lot that happens behind the scenes and that we may never truly understand. So try not to get discouraged, and just do your part, and something will click.
The best advice I always got on that, which kind of supports what Melanie just said, is trust the process. If you're tweaking your resume based on each job, you know you're a fit for the job, you're networking, you're going to career fairs, you're getting interviews, you're just one of the last candidates not getting chosen. Trust the process. Don't get discouraged. Things are going to work out. As Melanie mentioned, there's a lot of things that are out of your control, but if you're applying and you're getting calls to come in for interviews, there might be just one or two missteps, or it might just be a chance that they selected another candidate over you. More concerning would be that you apply to, let's say, 100 jobs and you're not getting any interviews. Then it's time to take a step back and reevaluate what you're applying for and how you're selling yourself on your professional documents.
You know, there's so many different opportunities and different tracks people could go into. We can't answer all the questions today. We will stay on a little bit after the broadcast and try to answer some individual questions. But really, this was to introduce you to a little bit of NSU and talk about some things that maybe you hadn't considered. And I just want to ask my panel one last series of questions, or one last question. If you had $1 million tomorrow, what would you do with it?
Not a webinar.
James, you start. What would you do with $1 million? Except take the mini human out to the soccer game, I'm sure.
Yeah. Probably best I push that question on to Emilio. Emilio, what would you do with $1 million?
Yeah, well, obviously I would do some things, buying a nice house, maybe a nice boat. But I would love to start a nonprofit, Your Career in Gear, where I could help, low socioeconomic areas and people that are struggling with their career on track, a nonprofit that really guides these individuals and helps them either restart their career, recharge their career, especially everything that's going on with COVID-19. I think an organization like that would really be beneficial for those who, for the first time, are in a job search, or those that are really just struggling, understanding really all the mechanics that go into getting into a job or selling yourself. And so definitely taking care of myself and buying a nice house and a boat, but also giving back and starting a nonprofit organization that is a passion area of mine.
Oy. I'm pretty sure I'll never have to think about this one for real, but I would probably save it and, buy a new car, buy a couple things here and there, but I would probably save majority of it for expensive things later in life that I know are coming, like children's tuition. Yes.
David?
I don't know. I've got 2 kids getting ready to go to college, so that's probably where I'd, focus it. $1 million doesn't go as far. You should change it to $1 billion. That would be.
We did that recently. We had it in the last program, $1 billion. But I figured let's, go a little conservative with $1 million. That's kind of realistic. You never know when somebody might hand you $1 million.
My understanding is that you recently did come into $1 million, Carlos, right? And aren't you buying all the participants today a car that for everyone that came in? Not us, unfortunately.
Under your chair.
Yeah, the participants. Yeah, go to the chat. Carlos is going to send you that link there where you can register there, and he'll send you that brand new car.
I'm going to be the new Oprah, and new cars for everyone.
You're getting a car. You're getting a car.
David, did we get you?
You got me.
Okay. Oh, so we will stay on for a little while. I do want to give the panelists opportunity for any final parting thoughts. Just go ahead, and then we'll stay on for. And Sean wants a car. Yeah, Sean, we're going to send you the car right now.
Be careful, you're being recorded as promising.
I'm recording. Any final words before we say goodbye?
And just remember to be happy while you're pursuing whatever it is you're pursuing. Go ahead and allow yourself that time to take a break and say, hey, you know what? I am happy right now. It's all right.
Laura wants a Camaro.
I think it's important to note that there's a lot of different avenues to your career goals. All of us here have different stories on how we reached our goals. And so it's really important to not be discouraged if you see your friend or don't compare yourself to people in your study group or others around you. You all have your own path, and there's a lot of ways to kind of reach that mountaintop. And sometimes it comes through non-traditional avenues. So stay positive, put yourself in the right position, but don't be compared to how others kind of got to where they are, because there's different stories and ways and how we all got to where we are today.
I love that. I often tell students, let it unfold, especially if you like to, plan everything to the last detail. There's some things about your career, you just have to let it unfold, let it play out, embrace the journey. But don't be afraid to talk to people, if you feel like a different career or, you're not sure which path to go down. I think talking to people, doing the research is so essential. So, you have resources to use as you kind of navigate that.
Yeah.
And one other thing.
Oh, sorry. Try different things, get different experiences. I mean, everything makes you unique. Everything gives you a little bit more experience that you bring to the table, even if it's something that you don't want to do for the rest of your life. So go try different things. Go do different things. Go, get, volunteer for different things, and that'll help you learn and kind of figure out where you want to go.
And it's okay if it takes a lot of time. Don't think it should happen right away. Unfortunately, I have some students that just, they feel like if they don't get into med school that first year or second year, they feel like they need to just do something else. And I have to try to remind them to remember how long they're going to have to work before they can retire, and to put it in that perspective. Right? If you're not going to retire till you're 65, right, then what are you going to be doing for 40 years of your life? And is it worth putting in that extra year to try to get there and put in that extra work? Yeah, I have a student who just graduated from med school, and a couple weeks ago was his graduation, and he took 5 years to get in. 5 years. But guess what? For the rest of his life, he's going to be doing what he really wants to do, right? And another one who's currently in med school, it took 4 years to get in. And so if they would have given up, be a very different life for them. So, it's not a race. right? I know with social media, it's hard, and you think that everyone else is moving on and doing other things, and why isn't my life progressing? It's okay to take a while. It took me, I was 36 when I finally finished up my PhD, and 40 by the time I started my real job here. So it's okay. I tell you what, the quality of life is worth it. It's worth the investment.
Well, thank you, panelists. I appreciate you taking your time, and I encourage our audience to share these webinars with their family and friends, their colleagues. They could reach them at www.nova.edu, Shark Chats,